Kingdom, what's happening? Gary McKenzie back at you again for another episode of Gridiron Lines. I have a question for you. Chris Jones has missed about 17 days of training camp while he holds out. He's been the talk of the town all over Chiefs YouTube. So I figured I'd jump in and join the conversation. But did you know that NFL players with Chris Jones's contract status, meaning he's not on his rookie deal, for every practice they miss at training camp, it's a $50,000 fine. Chris Jones has missed 17 of these practices. So that totals to be about $850,000 in total fines. Chris Jones, obviously wants to get a contract extension. He wants to get paid. He believes he's not paid fairly compared to the rest of the NFL. Give him the production he has at his position. So let's look at the rest of the NFL and see just how underpaid Chris Jones is at the moment. So right now, Chris Jones is the 8th highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. He's paid $20 million per year. Ahead of him are DeForest Buckner, Javon Hargrave, Dexter Lawrence, Daron Payne, Jeffrey Simmons, Quinnen Williams, and Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald really broke the defensive tackle market. And, you have to think that there are 31 other NFL owners or NFL teams, NFL GMs that are looking at the Rams and being like, why'd you do that? Why would you do that to us? Why would you pay Aaron Donald so much money? Because now other guys are going to want that much or close to that much. Same thing with the Christian Kirk signing. All the other teams, GMs are like, why'd you do that? Now you're killing us. You're killing us, everybody. So just stop signing these guys with so much money. But Chris Jones, realistically speaking, he could be asking for Aaron Donald money. And that could be why the deal hasn't been done yet, because the Chiefs don't want to fork out that much cash for one player. And I think the Chiefs are closer to Quinnen Williams' number of $24 million. And I think that somewhere in the middle might be a reasonable offer for Chris Jones. So somewhere around 27, 28 million per year for, 4 years. And Chris Jones heading into the next season, he will be turning 29. And is it a wise idea to give a player like Chris Jones a large contract worth a lot of money when he's going to be on the wrong side of 30? So I looked at some other defensive tackles and just wanted to see how their career progressed. Other defensive tackles who I felt were, really great defensive tackles. And Chris Jones, at this current point in his career, has 66 or 65 sacks. So he's not on pace to, be the all-time sack leader at the defensive tackle position. But he's putting up solid numbers, and he is obviously a solid player. So looking at Chris Jones' numbers again, he's spent 7 years in the NFL thus far. He's going to be 29 next season. And, he's kind of been up and down in terms of his sack totals. He had a really great year in 2018 with 15.5 sacks. And then another great year in 2022 with 15.5 sacks. And then in 2019, 2020, 2021, he had around 8 sacks. So he's been productive, and he's also been healthy. This is a player you want on your roster, but to pay him like he's the highest paid defensive tackle, I'm not so sure how I feel about that. And the first player I pulled up that I wanted to see how they kind of aged in the NFL after they turned 30, former Chief, one of my favorite players growing up, Neil Smith. So Neil Smith, whenever he turned 29, he had a 12-sack season, so he had a good year. Then he turned 30, and once he turned 30, he hit a brick wall of sorts. He still had good years in Kansas City and Denver, but he never got above that 10-sack mark. So when he turned 30 in 1996, he had 6 sacks, 31, he had 8.5 with Denver, and 32, he had 4 sacks with Denver. And then when he turned 33, he had 6.5 sacks in Denver. And he continued to play almost all the games throughout the year. So he was a player who remained healthy, contributed, had the best ability, which is availability. So he was on the field. Another player I wanted to look at was John Randall. So another great interior defensive lineman. Did some work on the outside, kind of similar to what Chris Jones did. He is somewhat similar in size, or at least weight. He's nowhere near as tall as Chris Jones was. So John Randall 6'1", 290. I think Chris Jones is 6'5", 6'6", 290. Yeah, 6'6", 298. So, John Randall played probably around 20 years ago. It was the last year of his professional career. So the size of the defensive linemen, they were a bit smaller, a bit leaner. The NFL players nowadays are just larger, faster, stronger than they were even 20 years ago. But John Randall finished his career with 137.5 sacks. Very productive. Reminded me of Chris Jones in a number of ways. But when John Randall turned 29, he had 11.5 sacks. When he turned 30, he had 15.5. 31, he had 10.5. 32, he had 10. 33, he had 8. So John Randall was productive well into his mid-30s. And this gives me hope that, if the Chiefs were to sign Chris Jones, then he could have, a strong finish or he'll have a strong level of play into his mid-30s. Nextly, we have the other player I wanted to look at was Julius Peppers. Spent a lot of time on the defensive end, so did some outside linebacker, in 3-4. So he wasn't necessarily a defensive interior player, but he's also about Chris Jones's size. So 6'7", 295 pounds. Chris Jones 6'6", 298. So similar size, and Peppers, played until he was 38 years old. So that's pretty impressive for any position that is not at the quarterback position in the NFL. When he turned 29, he had 10.5 sacks. When he turned 30, he had 8 sacks. 31, 11 sacks. 32, he had 11.5 sacks. 33, he had 7. Once again, he remained healthy throughout most of his career, playing, in all the games that the season offered. And in fact, if you look at Julius Peppers' numbers, his games played, he only missed 6 games over a 16-year career. So Julius Peppers was kind of an Iron Man, and whenever I started looking at his numbers, I didn't notice this, or I didn't know this, so I thought that was interesting, just to see how injury-free Julius Peppers had been. So these players that we've looked at, John Randall, Julius Peppers, Neil Smith, each one of them remained productive over the length of a contract that the Chiefs would be considering offering Chris Jones. So if the Chiefs, I think, are probably considering a 4-year contract at his age with his production at this point in time, I think that's a relatively safe contract. Neil Smith did have some falling off, so he was one of the players we looked at. But do I think that Chris Jones is on Julius Peppers' and John Randall's level and Neil Smith's level? I'll say, yeah, sure. I think he's on that level, and I think he can be productive. So we got the first thing out of the way. Giving Chris Jones a 4-year deal, I don't think is bad business. I don't think it's a bad idea. However, I do think giving him Aaron Donald money is bad business and is a bad idea. The Chiefs, their salary cap over the next 3 or 4 years is looking pretty good. But you have to understand that there are other rookies on the team that are currently on their rookie deal, or so there are other players on the team that are currently under their rookie deal that don't have that payday that they're looking for, and you want to retain as much talent as possible. Now, the other question I want to ask is, will losing Chris Jones for the Chiefs stop them from winning a Super Bowl? Will it impede their Super Bowl progress so much that it makes it unlikely that they'll win a Super Bowl without Chris Jones? And you go back and you think about the plays Chris Jones made against the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, and he was a huge factor in that game, getting after Joe Burrow, sacking him, and he's continued to be a nightmare. And in fact, I think that, in the NFL, the quarterback is the most important position, then maybe your left tackle, and then the person who goes after the quarterback on the other side of the ball is the, second or third most important player on the team. And Chris Jones would be that player. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I don't think the Chiefs want to lose him. Now, it's going to be counterintuitive because I'm going to also say that I think that the best possible thing that could happen to the Chiefs in this situation is if one of the players that they already drafted on the defensive line, say George Karlaftis or Felix Anduke-Uzomah, if one of those players just blows up, becomes a tremendous pass rusher, and makes Chris Jones almost expendable. And then the Chiefs trade him, get a first-round pick, draft another player that's a high-quality player, and I do think Chris Jones would be worth a first-round pick in a trade. Get a high-quality player, and then that player, has a long career with the Chiefs, and everything works out well. I will say, though, that's unlikely. It's unlikely to hit like that in the draft. I think the Chiefs have a good player in Chris Jones. They should try to keep him. And I would look for hopefully signing him around the $27, $28 million a year range. That will cause some issues for the Chiefs cap-wise going forward, but it doesn't hamstring them so much that they can't continue to be a winning team. It won't hamstring them so much that they won't be able to win a Super Bowl. So I'm on the side of the fence where the Chiefs sign Chris Jones long-term, $28 million per year. Yes, it's a lot of money, but he brings a lot to the table for the Chiefs. I do think that, he is getting a little older, but I'm not concerned so much about his age. I think that he'll still be productive well into his mid-30s. And, we've seen some comparable players that showed that. So let's go ahead and get this deal done. And Chris Jones, every practice you miss, every training camp practice you miss, that's another $50,000 fine. Are you tired of losing $50,000 every single time you miss practice? We're inching towards $1 million in total fines. Chris Jones, come to camp, sign your deal. Let's get all this, under the bridge, water under the bridge. Let's play some football. Chiefs' first preseason game is coming up. And the question I want to ask everyone regarding Chris Jones, we've talked about him so much the past week. How much money do you think he should be paid? What is his value to the Chiefs? How frustrated are you with Aaron Donald for blowing up the defensive tackle market? And, just let me know in the comments how much you think Chris Jones should be paid. Do you want the Chiefs to try to trade Chris Jones? I'm not on that boat. I want the Chiefs to keep him. It's hard to find a dominant pass rusher like Chris Jones. But let me know in the comments. And as always, make sure you like the video if you like what you see here. Hit the subscribe button down below. Hit it, please. And that helps us out because we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. And that's been an awesome goal for us. And we're inching closer. And we appreciate everyone who takes the time to like and subscribe because it really helps us out. Helps us get us where we're trying to go. But with that, that's all I've got. This is Gary, Gridiron Lines, signing out. Go Chiefs.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.